June 13th. So the first order of business is approving the meeting minutes. It looks like a lot of minutes, but really it's not a lot of minutes. So we've got May 9th, which was our last regular meeting, and then very, very short minutes for May 20th and 23rd, which were those very brief meetings to approve the special permits for Has everybody had a chance to review?
Yeah.
All right, I move that we adopt the minutes. Can I just do one motion for? Yeah.
Sure.
I move to adopt the minutes for May 9th, May 20th, and May 23rd.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Excellent. And then the next thing we have is, thank you. On our agenda, we always have a public speak time. This is separate from the hearings that are scheduled. If somebody happened to be here and wanted to say something, that would be now. I assume everybody is here because you're on the agenda. We'll move on. We've got 3 items on the agenda for tonight. We've got Beacon Communities, yeah. Beacon Communities, and then we have Amy Love of 385 East Street. That's you? And then we also have Joel Keefe. Not you. Okay. Well, he's on for 7:30, so.
Also have a request for comment at the end of the planning board.
Right. Wait, did you send?
No,
Okay.
it just came in.
Good. I was like, how do I look at everything? All right.
Oh, good, thank you.
So let's get started. If you could, there were 2 things. I think it was a total of 5 requests. If you could just maybe summarize.
Yeah, I'll
for
do a
us.
quick one. And there's actually 2 more things I just want to mention for that as well. So, shall I just go big picture? I'm Darcy Jameson. I'm with Beacon Communities. I've worked on the Easthampton Meadow project for about 10 years, so anything you want to know, I'm happy to answer. As you know, the front lots are sold and developed. The treehouse community has been built and running, and what we're doing now is building out the ownership homes that were also permitted under a comprehensive permit. We had a lot of flexibility under the permit in terms of building the homes. It was basically, we had models of homes, and so now as a buyer, you come in and you just say, I'd like this model and I'd like it on this lot. And whatever mix and match that all is fine. We obviously held the lots for a long time because the market tanked. So here we are 10 years in, still with the lots. And, but things are coming along. We have Primetime Communities as a group that does marketing. We have them on site now, and I think in general the market's getting stronger and things are picking up, which...
How many lots do you still have to sell?
I count. So all 9 affordables are either sold or under purchase and sale. So 5 are sold and 4 are just wrapping up and are under agreement. So they'll all be sold by, I think, mid-August, which is fabulous. And then on the market, so that's 9 of those, that's done. There are 24 market rate homes, and let's see, well, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 are sold, and then we have a couple more under agreement. So things are moving along, and part of what we'll talk about tonight is what we found is 2-car garages in Easthampton, where it's cold and snowy, are really important to people. So we have, so maybe that's close to 10. So we have 14, give or take, depending on if all the ones that are under reservation go forward still to sell. But it's moving along, which is nice. It gets it. Fills in the community, puts them on your tax rolls, which is great, and fills in the community to what we initially, and I say we, I mean this was really a project that we sort of did with the mayor and the planner who was here at the time, and so for me it's fun to see it sort of really coming fully to fruition. Okay, so let me go through the requests. So the first request is approval to build 2-car garages on a home, any home where people want them. We have approval for a single-car garage on all of the lots, and We built a couple of homes, got building permits to build a couple of homes with 2-car garages, and literally about 3 weeks ago I was looking back through something and I was like, single-car garage? Wasn't really focused on the fact that it wasn't garages on. So I called Jessica and said, hi. Very straightforward conversation. And it's interesting. So actually, we have a custom home out there that has a 2-car garage that you guys approved because we brought it back for approval. And actually, one of the models that's approved has a 2-car garage. So my recollection isn't that great whether or not, single was intentional or not. Or it was, but anyway, we wanted to come back and
when the comprehensive, because it was a comprehensive permit, so when that was issued, the models were attached to that, or no?
No, we did these models.
Those are the ones that.
These are the high energy efficient models that we about 3 years ago when we said, okay, the market's going to start to turn around. What are we going to do here? We got to know Carter Scott from Transformation Inc., who builds these energy efficient homes, and we said, all right, we love this idea. It sort of fits with the goal out here, anywhere, really. We just loved it. And so we had a series of models, and we went through a whole series with the ZBA of finishing up all of our approvals in the comprehensive permit, tick by tick, getting the models approved and everything. So that was done.
You remember that to me?
And that was done very comprehensively because we were in the process too of closing on all the financing with the state. So there were legal opinions from our attorneys. So it was Tony remembers, it was a full comprehensive financial closing, all the ducks in a row and going forward. So there are, there's probably about, what did I say, about 11 or 12 lots where garages will never be built, either because they are the teeny tiny lots, and they don't fit garages, or there's 1-car garage on them already, or somebody bought a couple of lots that will never have houses on them. They wanted extra space, so they bought the lots adjacent to them. So just in terms of sort of the feel of the community. So we'd like approval. The first request, keeping it simple, the first request is approval if somebody wants 2-car garage, that we can proceed with that. Should I do everything and then you guys?
Let's just do a note. Let's just get all of them.
So that's the first request. So when I called Jessica and had that conversation, she said, well, if you're coming in, it would probably be useful if there was some more administrative flexibility, because we never intended to build custom homes out here. The intent was, here are your models, pick your lot, pick your house. But the truth is, and we've learned, and we're apartment builders, like building single-family homes isn't sort of what we do broadly. If you're building a house, people want the house the way they want the house. They want to tweak a little bit here, a little bit there. And so under the comp permit, if there's anything, if it's inside the house, you guys didn't care. But if it was anything major on the exterior of the house, and so we respectfully come back, we've built a couple really custom homes, and then there's been some tweaks here and there. So the second request would be giving the city planner some administrative approval. For example, if someone just wants to build out over their garage, build the space out over their garage, everything doesn't have to come back in here. With the firm understanding, if she or the building inspector feel like it's more than they feel comfortable with, we'll come back. We'll put together a similar request and submit it. So that's the second request. And then the third request.
Now with that, did you either have thoughts or have discussed with Jessica whether we'd give guidance or parameters as far as where how that authority would be contained, or is that not something you guys discussed?
We didn't talk about it, but I think I'll give you my 2 cents on that, if we had talked about it. Given that we have a theme in this community and we have models that are approved, and we as a company finishing building it out, and Jessica as a planner with the interest of the community, we know what we want this community to look and feel like. So I guess probably our interests are aligned from the perspective of, it's anything, we're not going to approve, even as the seller, if someone wants to do something that we just think doesn't jive with the way the community looks and feels, not okay. And I think Jessica would say the same thing. I mean, I think what we're thinking about is dormers, a porch or a patio that's appropriate, fits within the envelope. You know.
Nothing that's going to be adding a lot of square feet.
No,
Nothing.
you know, nothing out of really this too much footprint. Yeah, so I think that's sort of the parameters.
And all the houses will like have clapboards, you're not going to have Tudors mixed in. I mean, that's...
No, and that's, I mean, these are the models that are approved, right?
That's what I mean.
Yes,
You're going to
so
stick with the architectural feeling of the community.
And at the end of this, there are 2 more custom type homes that I'd like you guys to see and review and say that it's fine, or Jessica can say they're fine. And one of them's significantly more custom than, because the guy has a handicapped son, and so we said, fine, we'll design a house for you. But it fits, and you'll see, I'll show you, firmly within the fabric of the community. And the other one's just adding a dormer to one of the approved models. And that's the kind of stuff that Jessica's
Yeah, we don't have to deal with that.
Right. The house that I'll show you that's custom, I would always come back for. That I would say, in my mind, that would fall out of administrative approval, even though you guys might say, yeah, if it really looks just like that, Jessica could say it's fine. And then the third request is not even, it's something Jessica brought up when we talked, which again has to do with, now she has experience with people that have bought houses and are living there and want to put a little dormer, a shed up, or they want...
Yeah, I know that's come up before.
It has.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of a request on behalf of the community
Residents.
to give her a little bit more flex, or whoever it is, but Jessica in this case, to give Jessica a little bit more flexibility. And again, I think it falls within sort of the same parameters.
Because I wasn't here when this was approved, are the single-family lots considered like open space subdivision lots, whatever, by the town of Easthampton zoning regulations, so that the outbuildings and the sheds are permitted? I mean, the other looks like a condominium, the rest of the development, the land's in common.
It's, well, that is, yes, because we own the whole
Right.
thing. These are single-family lots that were zoned under a comprehensive permit.
Right.
Yeah, oh, you've got the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm sure somebody who owns a duplex, or owns half of a duplex, and the other can't put up a shed or whatever because the land owned in common, but these people all own their lots.
Well, slight difference. The treehouse community is rental.
Oh, it's all rental? I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was all rental.
Right,
Okay.
so it's run just like a regular rental community.
Very nice rental.
Thank you. So
The issue is because it's the comprehensive permit.
You have to come. Everything comes
So, I mean, the easiest thing that we could do would be to delegate her authority to treat them as regular single-family lots under the existing zoning ordinance. I guess we'd pick a zone, or...
Well, they do have dimensional requirements that differ from the
yeah, I was just
zoning
going to
ordinance.
say, you wouldn't, I don't think,
Because I wasn't here for either.
having done this for so many years, I wouldn't think you'd want to go that broad, because the comprehensive permit is quite specific and clear about what can be built, and we're not looking to deviate from that. But it would be administrative approval, for example, if someone comes back and wants to put a patio or a deck on the side of their house, and they'd have to be within the building envelope, or they decide to build out over their garage, 5 years from now because they want some more space. It would be...
I guess I'm just struggling with... Well, because I'm not...
In the zoning regulations and/or the comprehensive plan, are there enough standards so that every homeowner will be treated exactly the same way if they want to put up a pool or shed? I mean, there's a written set of rules so that everyone will be treated the same.
It's hard.
That would be my only concern, that if these are all owner-occupied lots, that they all have the same rights and they all can do the same things within some written standards.
I think you could define it. You could define sort of administrative approval as, porches, patios, dormers.
Well, you mentioned sheds and pools.
Yeah.
To me, those are a little different than patios.
And I'm not looking for this approval.
I know.
And this could be one that you decide to discuss more with Jessica, and look at a subsequent,
So the comprehensive permit, so I'm looking at it now, I did not have time.
That's okay.
The whole thing. Gives separate dimensional, like the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet, and then it's only got 5-foot setback. So is the issue that, despite these things, people still need to come to get a special permit for like any kind of additional structure that they want to put on?
Yes.
Okay.
And when this was put together, literally like 11 years ago, I think everyone didn't quite, we were all still figuring out what we were going to do here and build. So I think much of what was here was to make sure that we were all talking to each other and that this community didn't get slapped up and have a very haphazard appearance, which is appropriate.
But once people are living there, there needs to be some flexibility.
And I think that's sort of what Jessica was bringing up as she's gotten to know the community. I don't want to speak for her, she's not here, but from having had conversations with her.
And I can answer your questions too regarding the planning department.
Yeah. Anything to add to that? I mean, do you think that's sort of the gist?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the difference is that in a typical single-family home, the zoning ordinance allows homeowners to, if they meet the requirements, they can have a pool or a shed.
Right, well, that's what I was trying.
But that this comprehensive permit says that everything, any change has to come back before the ZBA.
Right, well, that's what I was thinking, like if we could somehow sort of merge, like maybe take the dimensional requirements, but then sort of graft it onto, like just in terms of circumscribing the authority, because I don't know that we would feel comfortable just saying, sure, the planner has authority to, in her discretion, determine that this is fine. Like that just seems a little bit too, I don't know, too loosey-goosey maybe, or just too out there, whereas if it was more, within the constraints of the building, envelopes outlined in the comprehensive permit, the planner has the authority to,
sheds, dormers, pools.
or I don't think we're going to come up with the language today probably, but so that's something we can. All right. Number.
So just in terms of, so I think. So I think that one is certainly one that you guys could work on with Jessica. So then the second request is, as we are getting to know our buyers better and we sell lots, there's 2 requests here. We have a ranch that we designed that people have liked, but we've heard requests that they want something slightly smaller, and obviously the houses, it's really important to us that they are net zero houses. And so the big ranch doesn't fit on some of the lots with the orientation, right? So, and we've heard people say we like the first floor living. Some older people have said that they love it, and so people have said, could you design a smaller ranch? Similar to the one you have, and we said sure. So that's what this is.
Okay.
And so it's got a little bit of a different window facade, just because you don't want every house to look the same. But that's essentially what that is. It's just, and we've done this a few times. We've added models.
Yep.
So that's what that is. And then the farmhouse, which if any of you went into the original model, which was the farmhouse, but we sold it, was this. And then this is just slightly different. The floor plan's just a little bit different. And again, it was just our marketing folks saying, we think a little bit of a different layout would sell better. And so we said, well, that's easy enough. Our architects draw it up. And so the second 2 requests are just, we're just adding models.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are those. Let me just organize my papers. And then I didn't submit these as formal requests because they happened a little bit later, like last week. Stuff got finished up, but Jessica said go ahead and bring them in for the discussion. and as part of hopefully just wrapping up approvals. So this lot right here on the corner is reserved by a gentleman who has a son who's
Right.
handicapped and wanted to have a custom designed house that met the wheelchair needs. So these are the sketches of the home. Obviously, whenever I present anything, it fits in the building envelope. Mark Reed lays everything out for us. You guys all know Mark. So it's got some accessibility. It's the same construction, same plans, and same specifications as the home we're building in terms of the thick walls, and same house except laid out a little bit differently to meet his needs. Front facade and just an aerial view. But again, it fits within the fabric of the community. It's the same concept of homes. Same siding, same exterior feel. So that's one. And then lot 22. we
I'm
have-
sorry, which lot number?
That's lot 12. And then lot 22, the Victorian is an approved plan. It's right here. Oh, and this would have a 2-car garage. And the Victorian is an approved plan, and this was a 2-car garage Victorian, and they are gonna build up the space over the garage, so it's dormered. So, very straightforward, but again, we did, when I talked with Jessica about...
So, I'm sorry, just to clarify,
Yeah.
the approved plan called for that looks like a 1-car garage.
Yes,
And
and
so this would...
didn't have it dormered.
So this is different in that it's both
2-car.
wider because it's a 2-car and then also dormered.
Yeah. And so when I talked to Jessica in the building department, I said, if we're just set aside the garage, but even that's not that big of a deal because it's just, another 10 feet. But if we're dormering something, is that a big to do? And she said, no, but obviously you want to make sure your plans that are going in the building department match what you're building. So it's not, because it's easy in custom homes to just say, oh yeah, we've got the basic house and we're going to dormer. Most builders don't. Dave Hardy does not need a plan to know how to do that, but the building department does. So anyway, we just put together a new set of plans so that it's exactly what we're building.
So, just out of curiosity, how many square feet is that going to add to the model, and is it going to put it, like, really,
It's within the building envelope entirely, and so it fits within the package.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, does it make it a substantially larger house than the other houses that are approved?
No, for example, the Amherst, I think is actually even a little bit smaller than the Amherst, which is quite a good size home.
Okay, so the Victorian was not one of the larger models to start with?
No.
Okay.
No, it just gives you a sense of... Yeah, I mean, this is 1,700, the original, and this is almost 24, just to give you a sense of... So, that's it. All right.
So what we need to decide is whether a change is substantial or insubstantial, and I think maybe for tonight we should put the administrative approvals to the side for now. Maybe if there's time at the end of this meeting we can discuss it a little more, but I don't want to keep other folks waiting while we wade through that, because I think that's a little bit more in-depth than some of these other issues. So what we've got is we've got the request to be able to change plans to have 2-car garages instead of 1-car garage, to add 2 different approved models, the smaller ranch and the slightly modified floor plan for the farmhouse 2, and then specific requests for the modified home on lot 12. Now, is that based on one of the approved models, or is it just from whole
We
lot?
designed it.
Okay.
We just literally sat down, our team sat down with the man and the gentleman, the buyer, and said, how can we meet your needs?
Yep. So the custom home on lot 12, and then the slight modification to the approved plan for lot 22. And
conditions?
I would consider that the ones that you mentioned all inconsequential and not needing a public hearing or anything, and that move that the board approve them.
I would tend to agree. I mean,
They're very inconsequential.
certainly what I've got here on my list is 4, 5, 6. The different plans all seem to me to be inconsequential. The 2-car garage maybe is more consequential, but you know, if one of the approved plans already has one, it seems to me that we've now...
And you approved it on
Right.
other custom homes.
And we've approved it on other custom homes, and it just doesn't seem like there's any logical reason to treat that any differently.
Right.
And
So,
if it gives you any comfort, Jessica and I did run this by our zoning attorney who writes all the opinions, because I checked with her, because I like to be able to, and
right, I mean, I know,
she was
yeah.
same page as you, so.
Well, I think that's fine, so why don't we go ahead and we can vote on that. Do you want to make
Can we
the...
just do them one at a time? I guess they just make different motions, or you want to do them all at once?
I want to do one, yeah, can we just
Okay.
do one motion? I can read you from my notes, so like a nice brief description for the, I'll do, how about if I do the motion?
Yeah.
I'll make it match my words, and then at the end, I can give you what I've got written down.
That works.
Okay. All right. I move that we, so what we're ruling is that it's insubstantial, right? We're making a ruling of insubstantiality. All right. I move that we rule that the following requested modifications to the comprehensive permit are insubstantial and therefore require no further review. All right.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were waiting for me.
Oh, I was waiting for you to catch up. So the requested modifications that were that I move that we find are insubstantial are approval to build 2-car garages on any of the lots. Approval of a new model to be known as the smaller ranch.
Very technical process when we name them.
Yeah.
The big ranch, the smaller ranch.
Approval of the Farmhouse 2 model. Approval of the custom home design for Lot 12, to be situated on Lot 12. And the modified plan for the approved model of the Victorian to be located on Lot 22. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. And I'll call Jessica, and you guys will chat, and I'll chat with
Yeah,
Jessica.
I think we'll just chat a little bit at the end.
And, you know, if we can provide anything more that's helpful, let us know.
Yeah, and I think we certainly are, I think the sense is that we would be happy to do that. It's just a matter of like, we want to make sure that we do
The
it.
inspector's okay with issuing a permit,
Right.
right? If he wasn't, then it would have to come to us.
Right.
In 10 years from now, Beacon Communities is going to be involved in all, and those people will still be homeowners, and
Right.
grandma wants to move in, and we need
Right.
to add a room for grandma.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
think,
so there has to be some way to do it.
but I think we just want to make sure that we, you know, since our role is to try to assure some level of consistency.
Yes,
I think we just want to make sure that we,
Yeah.
in delegating authority, we put appropriate parameters to ensure that people will continue to have.
Yeah, we agree. I mean, so whatever you're comfortable with, and, you know, we don't
Yeah.
mind coming back. This was,
Oh, you know what, can we split the hearing into 2 hearings, like, so that we've ruled on,
Yeah, that's why I was just
Instead
saying
of
to use
closing.
it to just,
can we maybe continue?
well, because anything that's ruled insubstantial, the request is put in, I don't even believe
Oh, we don't even have to,
that, do we have to we may have to modify this special permit, but there's no appeal period on it.
No, Barbara will just type up a letter and mail it to me, and we can,
I was just thinking maybe the thing to do though is to continue the hearing as to requests 2 and 3,
okay,
so that,
but only 2 and 3. And I'll tell you why I ask.
Yes,
because
only
we
2.
have buyers chomping at the bit for us to start.
yeah, no, only as to 2 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't want to hold up anything else, but I was just thinking that if we continue as to 2 and 3, you don't have to, you don't have to like file stuff again for us to continue it, we can just
I see.
continue it.
Right.
And especially since we do want to discuss it, I think at the end if there's time, that would work well. So we will continue as to 2 and we have ruled on the insubstantiality of requests 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We are continuing as to requests 2 and 3, and we will now move on to the next
Do you
hearing.
want to continue it to the next?
Well, right now we're continuing it till later tonight. So when we bring it back up later tonight, we can continue it to the next hearing. And
Do you need me to stay for that continuation?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. and-
Drive safe. I hope you can beat the rain. It's coming from the south.
Oh, I know. I drove out here in it, and
Yeah, there is more
you
coming
missed
from
me
the
whining that
south.
my iPhone died on the way out, and so, and I said to these guys, I'm like, I drove all over rural Vermont growing up without a phone, right? But now not having one, you're like, brr. Thank you. And if anybody wants to ever see the model or come up, to visit the community, let us know. Lauren's on site, 3-4 days a week, who works with us. Have you been up there?
I haven't.
Yeah, so anytime. It's kind of fun to learn about the net zero stuff. So, good, thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Jamie and I had dinner together, but we didn't know it. I was like, I know we know each other, but I can't think from where.
Yeah.
Amy, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you. All right. Can I get out the storage?
Yeah, it's open.
If you want that door.
Go around.
Thanks.
All right. So we'll now, having continued, open the hearing. This is the request to have 3 miniature goats at 385 East Street in Easthampton. And you're already welcome.
Don't go without talking to me.
Okay.
They make the check out to the bottom. You got that information, so just clear that up. It's not a big deal.
All right. So tell us what your plan is.
Well, I just moved here from Leverett, where I had a small farm there, doing gardening, and I had chickens and my goats. They are miniature dairy goats. That's the Nigerian dwarf breed. They're about knee high, and I have 3 females. And we use them for milk production for my family. I have 2 young children, 6 and 4. And so we milk them and we make cheese and yogurt and eat it. And that's basically it. So,
But you already have the goats. They're already in Massachusetts.
yes, they're already mine. They've been staying with a friend at a farm in Wendell, and so I just wanted to make sure that I did everything right. So,
We really appreciate it. Just like to say, it is always great when people come to us before they've done whatever it is. We like that. So we very much appreciate that.
And we don't have to worry about the health department's concerned about more goats because it says right in the application, female.
Right.
yeah. Well, since they are dairy goats, I do have to breed them in order to have them in, milking. But I sell the babies, so I'm
long?
not going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
And I assume if they're a miniature, they probably have one.
Yes, one
time.
very small baby goat. We keep them for a couple of weeks, 8 weeks or so.
And when you were in Leverett, how near were your neighbors?
About the same as where I am now. I'm at the old site of Old Turtle Farm. It's about an acre and there's ample space. And there's a large area in my backyard that's fenced in where I plan to keep them for most of the time. But then I'm going to set up some header systems, and I might even get some solar-powered netting fencing so that I can rotate them,
Yep.
just to keep it even. They'll help keep the grass down. They'll also fertilize things.
So can you show me? Maybe just draw on your on your lot where you plan to keep them.
Okay. So the fenced in bit goes like this. So that's already fenced in.
Uh-huh.
So they would be in there when I'm not home. But when I am home, there's a whole area here and here that's all grass, a little bit over here too, that my landlord said they're totally fine with me using that for grazing also. So I'm going to set up tether systems, which is something I've done. I've had these goats since 2010, so I'm quite proficient at this point with my goat wrangling skills. And I'm going to build a very small mobile 8x8 structure right here for them to sleep in.
That's going to be the next question was where are they going to sleep then? Is it small enough that you don't need a building permit? And the answer is
yes.
8x8, right?
I don't know off the top of my
I
head.
think it's under 10.
I think that's total square footage.
Yeah, but isn't it like 100 square feet so that it ends up being, well,
If the structure is granted as part of this permit, it'll be part of this permit.
right.
So,
Yeah, the question is, do we need to in fact grant it as part of this permit or is it not necessary? Would it be on wheels or on skids or?
Skids.
Existing fenced area.
I think that's actually part of the building code, not part of personal owns.
Oh,
So I don't
no, it doesn't.
know
Okay, so
if the landlord to add that into the.
oh, yeah, I'm just making one. And when you were in Leverett, did you ever have any complaints with respect to like noise or odor or?
Never.
I'm laughing goats and noise. They just don't.
Goats?
Yeah, but not, my dog barks louder than a goat. It's just a different kind of noise.
It's true. It is. That's true.
It's not like roosters either, they're not up at 4 in the morning.
No, they're not.
I have, if I'm able to speak a little bit.
Can you say your name for the?
Eric Frobel. I'm an abutting neighbor.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
We would love.
Can you spell your last name?
F-R-O-E-B-E-L.
And, okay, and what's your address?
381 East Street.
Thank you.
I grew up in the house at 381 East Street, and we abut the property 385. And I'm familiar where she's speaking of the board where it's fenced. Previous owner had quite a few chickens, Tony and Eileen. So there has been livestock there that we've appreciated, the abundance of eggs and things. And just, supporting the goats also.
I finally just realized where this is. And
Yeah.
Okay.
It abuts the
yeah,
Old
because
Turtle Farm.
Right. Yes, I was there when it was Old Turtle Farm, and when
Yeah.
I know.
Also, Ben, he owns the organic farm.
Yeah.
So it's been, I grew up in the house, where I live, and there's been livestock there quite a few times. One of the previous owners raised greyhounds. He had up to 20 greyhounds at one time, and there was not one complaint with the neighbors. 20 or so greyhounds. So, and I think it'd be great for my children too. So I fully.
We love it
Go
when neighbors
for this.
come and
Go
support people.
And I have chickens also.
That's great.
I came in front of the board about 4 years ago, and I have chickens. Let's go for the goats.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. All right, so we had the health inspector, just a couple of concerns, but I think we've already dealt with all of them being,
I will be composting any excess dropping.
I can't imagine there's that much from those hundred bucks.
There isn't, and mostly it just, goes right into the
Yeah.
lawn, and then the grass is greener, and it's,
Yeah.
a perfect cycle of life. But as far as like cleaning out the shed, a couple times a year when I do that, I'll be composting it.
Mhm. And, do you do like AI for your goats, or do you borrow a buck, or?
Buck service.
Okay.
Yeah. just my-
Curious. All right.
I'm a veterinary technician, so technically I am skilled with AI, but I prefer not to.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And if we write the special permit so that it allows you to have 3 does and 3 kids under, 6 months of age, will that, is that,
Sometimes they might have
They might-
multiple births.
they might, okay,
that you
so I
might
want to
not-
make sure that we don't write it too narrow, so,
Yeah.
I don't know, we could go for 6 and 6, and that way they'll probably never all twin at the same time, but,
That might-
and not 6 and 6, 3 and 6.
Do you have plans to increase the number beyond 3 of the adult goats?
Eventually, that would be nice, but I'm not sure how long I'll be here. Like I signed a 2-year lease, and I do plan on, staying as long as I can. But if that was a problem to increase it, then I wouldn't. But sometimes my kids get attached to it.
It's not so much a problem, it's more just like, we need guidance from you as to what you want. Like, we prefer to write sort of as narrow as we can, but we don't want to write it so narrow that you end up needing to come back here because something has changed, and if we just had a little foresight, we could have kept you from having to come back. So we're not going to just say you can have goats, we're going to need to limit it to number, but if you wanted us to limit it to, 4 does, that would be something I think we could certainly entertain.
Particularly with miniature goats. I mean,
Yeah.
They're tiny, super small, and if what he said is true, and there's 20 greyhounds there at one point, that's like mind-boggling to me. Well, let's just say 6 does,
Okay.
and then, like I said, the offspring, and we don't keep them, more than a few months.
And any offspring of those does up to 4 months old. So then you don't limit the number of offspring, but they have to be gone at 4 months.
Next 2 months. Yeah.
Then go back to Leverett.
All right. Anybody have, okay, let's see, what's the special, I want to make sure that we do whatever findings we need for the farm.
Here's
Viola.
I was like a minute away from Lake Viola, right over the line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I go by there all the time. Oh, yeah, it's real nice. We're on Lake Drive.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's real nice. We love it up there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I used to take my kids to swim there like every day, summers.
But that's not like, I just want to make sure we don't, I guess we should make findings as to each of these standards, perhaps. Maybe that would be like the better. But it's not, I was thinking like if it was additional, like how when we do the variance or the special permit even, like there's the specific findings, but this doesn't look like specific findings are required. We just have to, like when I draft the decision, I'll just like make sure that I say that we considered each of those things in our deliberations. So we have deliberated regarding structures and waste, that the structure will be an 8x8 shelter on skids and waste will be composted. That the animals will be restricted to the property. It will be in the existing fenced-in area or out on tethers when somebody is at home at the property. And this is a single-family home, and this is not chickens. So satisfying standards. And then,
That's the chart that just
I
says you
know.
need a special permit if you're under if you're
Is
under
it-
5 acres.
It's under 5 acres, that's what I
Yeah.
was trying to remember.
It's 5 acres.
Okay.
So the special permit conditions are
And they're in 13. 12.
12.79, I believe.
So you'd think I would know this by now, but. Criteria for approval. Oh, here we go. All right. So I move. I guess. How do I'm like blanking. I do the findings as part of I say them as part of the I move.
Well, I mean, so
Or-
each of those
I know.
criteria for approval, just
I just have to.
if they're relevant, say
I
that they're,
know.
and then the board has to find that they're
Right.
satisfied or not
right.
relevant.
All right, so, this conforms with, we are able to issue a special permit under Table 5.1. And, let's see.
Most of them are probably not applicable.
I know, so I don't think we need to worry about, this will not create any detrimental or offensive uses to a natural, scenic, or historic site. If anything, it is a use that is consistent with a historical site. And there's no traffic or safety. The amount of waste can be safely composted and doesn't create issues related to drainage or water. I assume there are no wetlands or anything on the area, otherwise we would have. There's no impact on city resources. There's no increased traffic or parking requirements. There's no need to do any sort of landscaping. Vegetation is not going to be removed. There's no structure that has any issues related to setbacks or placement or parking. And the composting will be adequate to protect the natural resources. And once again, the methods to ensure no air or water pollution will be fine. All right, none of those were really applicable. So, having considered all of the criteria for approval of a special permit at 12.79 and determined that none of them are particularly applicable, I move that we issue a special permit to allow for the keeping of 6 miniature dwarf Nigerian goats.
Nigerian dwarf. Dairy.
Nigerian dwarf. Miniature Nigerian dwarfs? Or that's redundant, it's just miniature dwarf.
Yeah, it's Nigerian dwarf is the breed, and then
And
there's
they're-
miniature dairy goats.
So Nigerian.
General, specific.
Would you prefer
dairy.
miniature dairy goats?
Yes.
So you're not limited to that one breed.
Yeah, all right. The keeping of 6 miniature dairy goats and the offspring of said goats, a miniature dairy does, and the keeping of the offspring of said does for up to 4 months.
Up to 4 months old.
Up to 4 months
Yeah.
old, yeah. Yeah, they can't come back.
Unless they're one of the 6.
Well, yes. All right. Or guys, somebody want to second that?
I'll second that.
You can fight.
I'll let Fran second.
All right.
That's what I put down.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So there is a 20-day appeal period from the time that I get the written decision into the town clerk, which won't be until next week, obviously, because the town is closed tomorrow. And
You'll
once...
be Sorry.
Oh, you can note, but
We'll send you a copy of the decision and a notification saying what your appeal period is. At the end of your appeal period, you need to go to the city clerk to pick up your certificate that says that no appeals came in, and then you'll have to file the decision with the Registry of Deeds in order for it to become binding.
Okay, where's that? Here?
The Registry of Deeds is in Northampton.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the city clerk can explain all that to you
Okay.
when that time arrives.
in about
It's a very straightforward process.
Okay.
so.
All right. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Have a good evening. All right, it's gotta be way after 7:30.
It's now 8 o'clock.
And
we have
Mr.
no
Keeper's
show.
not come.
So, do you guys want to?
Have a good evening.
Leave the door open?
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Thank you
fine.
so much for coming.
Thank you.
Does the board want to continue his hearing to the next meeting? Or?
Sure. That seems like the charitable thing to do. I'm feeling charitable.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like really awful weather out there.
Yep.
Maybe he has a flat tire too.
I know.
You had a flat tire? You had a
Yeah,
flat
Jamie,
tire?
when I went up to my garage to come to the meeting at 10 of 7, so I called Jamie and he came pick me up, and I'm hoping Fran's going home tonight and maybe he can drop me
I
off.
can give you a ride, yeah.
So can we just announce for everyone that's here that this hearing was continued to?
Yes, the hearing on 5 East, on the petition by Joel Keefe of 5 East Street, Easthampton is continued to our regular meeting, which will be on July the 11th at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
And then let's reopen the hearing briefly on the Beacon Communities.
I have a question that I think we need to know to help us make the decision. What kind of deed restrictions are the buyers of those lots subject to? Because that might have a bearing, what those say, on what the town can do. If there were limitations in their deeds.
Oh, you mean in addition to what's in the comprehensive
Yes,
permit?
yes, because they are single-family lots. And I would assume some of what's in the comprehensive permit would be reflected in the deeds, like the architectural appearance of the homes. The developer would want something on the land records that a
Well,
good
the
lawyer...
comprehensive permit is on the land records.
How many attorneys, when they're doing a closing,
Oh,
would look at the
yeah, that's
comprehensive
true.
closing?
Well, I mean, in this particular case, they probably really ought to, because they can't really do a clear, I mean, you couldn't
Right.
do a title, you couldn't, like, a title insurance company couldn't issue a policy without reviewing the comprehensive permit, because it's got its,
That's
because of the
true.
set, you know, like, they'd go to do it, and they'd be like, these setbacks don't match what's required, so I think they must have to.
Yeah,
which,
all of these get filed at the
I'm sure
registry.
pisses everybody off. No.
Well, the homeowners, when grandma comes to live with them and they want to add a room, they
They have to come to us.
right, and that doesn't really seem fair. So we want to
Right.
see what the
Yeah.
regulations are, and so we can just come up with a guideline to add to what's already available. So that 10 years from now, the homeowners can treat their lots like normal homeowners without coming to the board every time they want to do something. It's not now.
The question though is like, okay, so do we do that with language that basically says, subject to the dimensional restrictions in the comprehensive permit, the uses otherwise allowed, you know, like, I'm trying to just figure out the mechanics of how we do that. So like, you know, somebody is going to the building inspector to build that room for grandma. And the building inspector is going to look in the zoning ordinance and say, okay, well, as long as it's 10 feet back, you know, like for your zone, it needs to be 10 feet back, and it can't be taller than this, and you're good. And so can we just say,
Except that their special permit, the comprehensive permit specifically says that they're limited to one kitchen and no accessory apartments. So just this one example that you're bringing up is specifically, again, called out as...
But just a bedroom for grandma, not a kitchen for grandma, just a bedroom addition for grandma.
Oh, because you're saying because accessory apartments
An accessory apartment
is
is
now
attached.
allowed by.
Yeah, it's
Right,
it's allowed in the zone.
Right.
As long as you meet some dimensional requirements and that there's a fire break between the two units, but they have to share a common wall.
So it
if
sounds
you're
like-
adding a bedroom, that's just an addition.
But,
Right.
but that would, then, but I'm assuming Jessica, the building inspector, would not give a homeowner there now a building permit to put a bedroom addition on. He'd say to come back to the board.
Right, correct.
And that doesn't seem fair to the homeowners out there if they want to do something that's within the
Yeah, no, I
zone.
think you're preaching to the choir. It's just, I think it's just a matter of like, what mechanic do we use? Like, do we want to do a do we want to try to imagine all of the things that we think would be fine and make a list of things that are fine? Or do we want to try to use what's there and just like kind of comb through the comprehensive permit and say, you know, I mean, what would the zone be? The zone would be
Well, it's it doesn't matter.
Well,
Because the zone is the comprehensive permit.
right, but what I'm saying is, like, what if we said, like, you know,
I see what you're
like,
saying.
the requirements for zone R40 apply. However,
So it's-
the setbacks are as put in the comprehensive permit, and these following uses are not permitted. You know, like, that we comb through the comprehensive permit, figure out all the lists, like the list of all the things that they can't do.
Can one of the homeowners there come in and get a special permit to have goats?
Right, so I mean, this is,
Presumably, because there's nothing in the comprehensive permit that doesn't say anything about livestock. So anything that's
So-
not covered by the special permit, the comprehensive permit is typically covered by the zoning.
and what zone are they?
I think they're on 35. I have to double check. I mean, I think the board might be interested in trying to just outline a set of what the, you know, if it's a 10%, if the use is allowed in that zone, and within 10% of the existing property, the existing building size, and it doesn't infringe on any of the required setbacks as outlined in the comprehensive permit, then that becomes an administrative thing, versus if it's like over 10%, then that comes to the board.
And the under 10% could also be under 10% to apply for for a pool or a shed. But for those, it wouldn't be within the existing building envelope. Or maybe I don't really understand what building envelope means.
Yeah, I don't know how they were defining.
I think what she meant by building envelope was she meant footprint.
I think she meant the building envelope as the part of the lot that can be built on.
The building
Not-
setbacks.
Like
Oh,
everything
inside
about the
that.
setbacks, not the building footprint. So the
So
footprint
like
is,
the 5-foot front yard and 10-foot side yard and
Right.
whatever the rear yard.
so that to set lot coverage requirements and no expansion beyond a certain size.
Are those lots big enough that, oh, well, I guess that's what the percentages would be for.
And they vary in size from 5,000 square
Right,
feet.
yeah, that's what I'm realizing, it's like yeah. So your suggestion would be that we basically take the guidelines for determining substantial and substantial change and say that,
If it's, I mean,
just like the actual wording is.
What's the building coverage? I didn't print off the whole comprehensive plan. What is the building coverage that's permitted by their special permit?
minimum lot is 5,000 square feet. Minimum setback for garages is 5 feet.
It doesn't look like they did that.
Well, that would have major bearing on the other things they can do.
You want the max?
Building coverage right
Is,
here.
What is it?
It can't be 10%.
No, that's what
we're allowed.
that's what was allowed by the ordinance, and they sought 35%. So, no.
So it would appear that even if the smallest lots are 5,000, oh no, they're going to be tight on building coverage to add a shed or a room for grandma.
Well, I mean, that's the way it is, in
Right,
our
so there
district.
are limits already set in, I suspect, because the lots are so small.
Well, no, some of
But some of the lots are
some-
actually quite large. I mean, the person who bought 3 lots to protect their
Yeah.
view shed.
So if somebody came to the building department and they wanted a permit to put an addition, they go to the building department with the,
And the building department says it's under a comprehensive permit, go to the planning department.
so he wouldn't look at it and see what it says in a comprehensive permit to see whether it fits or not?
Sometimes, I mean, it depends on the building inspector and day of the week.
How many other people are waiting in his office?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. If he looks at it and he says it's okay, then it doesn't need to come to us.
Right, well,
It
this
only
is
comes to us if it doesn't fit.
I guess the question,
Well,
the issue
right
though is
now,
that like
any
sheds.
change has to
Yeah,
come
any
before
change
the
has to come
ZBA.
before,
Yeah,
so.
and that's what she wants to change, right?
Right.
And I would, yeah, and that makes sense. Sheds, pools, and a room for grandma, if they comply with the setbacks and the architectural standards, which I'm assuming are someplace, it shouldn't matter.
I think we kind of all agree, it's just a matter of like the mechanic of how we actually word it.
Right.
So I liked what was it that you had said before was,
That basically, if it's an allowed use for that zone, subject to the
Constraints of
coverage,
Right.
the lot coverages and the setbacks as defined in the comprehensive
Yep.
permit, if it doesn't exceed a threshold that the board decides, whatever that's 10% or 5,000 square feet or whatever it is that the threshold is, then that's considered an insubstantial change that can be administratively approved by the planning director. Might be
Right.
I hope you got that down, because
5,000 square feet seems like an awfully lot.
I just threw that.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's 10% or sometimes we see it in the ordinances where it's a percentage, and then there's, for a smaller lot, if you have a 1,500 square foot home and we say it's 10%, now their addition's limited to 150 square feet. Well, that's kind of, so as long as it doesn't go over the total lot coverages, maybe it's, 500 square feet or 10%, whichever is less. So that way everyone gets a little bit of extra space.
wow, the insubstantial thing is kind of crazy. Unless they mean by 10%, like the proposed housing, I guess they mean the whole.
I forget what I wrote.
Well, it's like a change in the number of bedrooms within individual units if such changes do not alter the overall bedroom count of proposed housing by more than 10%. But see, the problem with that is you can't, like that, see, this is the issue is that, like,
So they're not asking to reduce the number of housing.
but the problem here is creep. Like when something comes before us, theoretically, and this is certainly more true in theory, I think, than in fact, we know what's come before and we know whether we're getting into a point where like, hey, this is the 4th time in the last 2 years that somebody's come wanting an additional bedroom. Now are we getting to the point where these houses are getting so big that it really is a substantial, that it's a substantial change to continue to allow them? But then by that point, you've already allowed several.
Right.
So I don't know, that's like the problem with the
But how do you
with a
have
substantial or insubstantial change where it's measured against like everybody, as opposed to is it a substantial or insubstantial change with respect to that single lot is tricky.
I think it would be in respect to that particular development. And you can, I mean, I'm sure some of the houses that were built have offices or study. The next owner's going to use it as a bedroom. And they've got a finished family room in the basement. Maybe grandma's going to live, they're going to put the bedroom for grandma in the basement, so it becomes a bedroom. That's so hard to regulate, is number of bedrooms.
Right.
And I don't think.
No, I don't think we're going to. I mean, I think it's more like the. I guess what I'm saying though is, I don't find the 10%. Okay, so we could do a change of 10% in the floor area of an individual for individual units, and maybe that's the way to do it. So like, if it's allowed for the zone, and it is consistent with the coverage and setback requirements set forth in the comprehensive permit, and the change will not result in an increase or a decrease of the floor area of the home of more than 10%. 10% is so small.
No, but see, well, how do you define increase in floor area? If they're gonna finish the area over the garage into a study, is that an increase? I don't think that's an increase in floor area. I think putting an additional, increasing the size of the footprint, I think that's, I don't think anything that's already built there, what you do interior, we care about.
Also, that these changes are geared towards, from the comprehensive permit law, for affordable units. These are market rate units that are kind of, this was all built together, but these are the market rate units that
So they shouldn't be subject to the same kind of restrictions.
Well, I mean, they are because they came with the comprehensive permit, and now we're running into issues with, well, actually, they're single-family homes owned by...
And the people
by individuals.
Can we just do, like, if it's allowed for the zone, and it's consistent with the coverage and setbacks as allowed in the comprehensive permit, it can be considered an insubstantial change by the building inspector, and he can issue the building permit?
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
I just didn't know if the board wanted to put some thresholds.
I don't think
people
so.
who bought those houses, I think,
It's
are
just-
So what's the
some
reason right here?
they bought single-family houses
You
on
bought a
their
house,
lot. They
depending on
want
the
to
size of
be able
your
to do
lot.
what
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
else
So you
I
can
think
do
so.
this.
I think so. I think
Building inspector looks at it and very easily says, you
Yeah.
know, you can or you can't.
Okay. And then,
So that's basically provision 3 for the built homes,
right.
for administrative approval for the built homes.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it was the administrative approval for the unbuilt proposed housing. And they can almost be treated the
Can we
same.
treat-
Right,
the
they are
same.
Yeah.
They are the same.
I'd like to treat them the same. I like consistency.
Basically.
Yeah, I think we should just go ahead and issue a ruling that any proposed change to a built or unbuilt market rate lot, to the structure, to planned or built structures on a market rate lot is an insubstantial change, provided that whatever the change is would be allowed for the zone, and it is consistent with the coverage and setback requirements set forth in the comprehensive permit.
I think it add something about the architecture.
Okay.
We don't have any design review board.
I know, but they were all clapboard houses, and I think if somebody, not next year, but
Okay.
put
No,
a
no, I-
Tudor addition on, which would just destroy the neighborhood.
Okay, but then we have to figure out how to word that so that it's not ambiguous.
And we don't have a,
Okay, well then leave it
we don't have an
out.
architectural
We
review
could
board.
do, I don't think we could do, like, in, the same aesthetic style, but we could
That's like-
limit to,
It's like a deed restriction, we can't, I don't see how we can do that.
because it's already all restricted because of the comprehensive permit. I mean, we could require, the same exterior cladding. I mean, because that would literally be,
Well, that works for the existing buildings.
well, but they all have the same thing, right? So,
It could just say in keeping in harmony with the existing buildings.
well, but then that's like, I'm saying, like, if we wanted to say, for example, that because all of the buildings have the same not obviously the same
Yeah,
color,
it's
but the same building material, the same exterior.
Yeah.
Yeah, cedar,
It's not a situation like where you have a subdivision and they sell off lots and you buy a lot and hire your contractor and build what you want to do.
Right.
These things, Dave Hardy builds every one of them.
Right.
And they're built according to the models that they
Yeah.
have, so you can't have something different.
Well, although I think the question though is like, what if somebody comes in and wants to put, you know, an addition on and they want to stick brick on it? Do we care to try to enforce that? And my feeling is maybe that's really not our purview.
Right, we can.
Like, well, we can because of the comprehensive permit, but do we want to? I think is really the important question. Or do we want to leave that to, you know, Beacon Communities to put deed restriction if they want to have a deed restriction?
Right. That's what I think.
I would agree it's not in our purview, that's why I asked about deed restrictions earlier, but I just think the people who bought there will want some assurances
Right.
that the,
Well, then they can make a homeowners association, or
That's
they
right.
can go back to
There's no
Beacon, or-
assurance that, you know, in any place in the city, someone can knock down
Right.
their, you know,
Right.
historically looking, accurate house and build a modern.
but they didn't buy in a planned community. This is clearly, and people who buy in a planned community, I think, have different outlooks on what their neighbors can and cannot do.
Well, that's why without what a toy is.
House on a lot.
Sure.
That's all.
Sister.
I mean, I agree. I just, you know, the developers of the planned community are coming to us to ask for this flexibility.
Right.
So do we want to give the,
Oh, I think to the developers, yes, because they're not going to screw up. I think the homeowners 10 years from now might.
But to me, that's just like so outside of what we need to be policing,
Okay.
and we have plenty to police already, and there's no reason to
Yeah.
grab for more. I mean,
Right.
notwithstanding the fact that we could if we wanted to, I don't think any of us really wants to. So I move,
And in 10 years from now?
we will still be off the board. All right, I move that we, let's see. Gosh, what are we actually doing procedurally?
again, it's,
Modifying the
Mod-
comprehensive permit
Right.
to permit, we are modifying the comprehensive, no?
because this is an the request is for an insubstantial.
Oh, right, okay, so what are we doing? We're ruling,
That any changes that are within the parameters you mentioned are inconsequential.
yeah, but what is that? Like,
I mean, I think the request has to come from them that says that this is what is their request. And
Well,
then-
that was one in her list of requests, right?
right, no, it totally was one of her requests. I'm just trying to figure out, like,
So maybe we could put a condition on the request.
well, I'm just trying to figure out who, because normally what happens is she gets a letter, and then she puts a letter with all of her paperwork, and has it in case something ever comes up. If we do a blanket thing, who does it issue to? Do we issue it like essentially to the building inspector or the city planner so that they can have, you know, a copy in their file that they photocopy and attach to any, like, do we issue it essentially to the building inspector and then the building inspector can have it and attach it, or do we issue it to Beacon Communities and it's up to them to distribute a copy to all of the homeowners who then, when they come to the building inspector, they need to bring their copy? Like, I'm just thinking like there needs to be some sort of, I don't know, it's not like institutional memory exactly, but like
Yes.
we issue it, but if it's not really a decision, like if it's just a finding of insubstantiality, then it has to live somewhere so that it can come back. And maybe the way that it does that is we issue a letter to Beacon that we spell out in it that this may be, you know, copied and distributed to all homeowners, and maybe, I don't know, request that copies of it be filed with all deeds in the future or something like that. Or I'm just thinking like, you know, because there's going to be turnover. Like, we're not going to be the board. Eventually Jess is going to move on, Jamie's going to move on, there will be a new building inspector, and then these folks come, and how does anybody know that we already
So-
made this finding?
I mean, what the comprehensive permit law says is that if the change is determined to be insubstantial, or if the board fails and it's due in its period
Right.
of time, then the comprehensive permit shall be deemed modified to incorporate the change.
But
So,
couldn't we
like-
modify the comprehensive permit to say on its face, these types of changes are deemed to be insubstantial.
See, I think to do that, we'd have to open a public hearing. Because
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. 'Cause
We're
yeah.
amending the
Well, maybe that's what we should do.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, I feel like if we're gonna do this, we should do it right.
So then the ruling is that this is a substantial change, and that they have to come, and we have to have a public hearing to do that. I mean, that, unless I'm
Well, okay, but we had a public hearing tonight, and then we'd have to have another public hearing.
this wasn't a public hearing
Oh,
with Beacon.
Oh,
This
it
was-
wasn't,
This
okay.
was just an administrative chat.
okay, I get it now. Sorry, okay. Then yes, I think, so we couldn't really continue a hearing because we didn't really have a hearing open.
Yes, it was a meeting.
So the meeting, okay,
But, you know,
no, but so I misunderstood, okay.
Sorry.
No, it's just,
But I agree with Maggie. I think there needs to be a record someplace that these are the rules that the homeowners
yes.
have to abide by. It seems only fair to them.
Yes, I understand better now that how it works when they are, the insubstantial substantial thing was confusing to me. So they came for an informal, we decide whether it's substantial, insubstantial. If we decide it's insubstantial, we just write them a letter saying, you were here, we chatted, we decided it was insubstantial, go on your merry way.
Right.
If we decide it's substantial, then they have to come back again.
Then they have to do the
They have to
full
do a
process.
full
We have to
process.
notify all the abutters, and everyone has a chance to speak on it.
I think we need to do that, and I think because I think that the way to do this is to amend the comprehensive permit, because otherwise we run the risk of, for example, like they distribute these pieces of paper to all the current homeowners and they give them to everybody when they buy their lots, but like 10 years down the line, some people have them, some people don't. It just doesn't seem, for something that is supposed to streamline the process and make things easier, I feel like if we don't do it so that it actually is attached to the comprehensive permit, in the long run, we haven't made it easier for anybody. Or maybe we've made it easier for some people, but at the, cost of other people potentially. So, but since we don't have an actual hearing, we don't have to actually decide anything today.
Except that it's insubstantial. Or that it is substantial.
That it's substantial.
Well, do we even have to decide that today? Because we have, isn't it like 90 days or something? Oh, it's less, how much time?
20.
20 days, oh. So I guess we really do have to decide today. I think that because they're asking for a blanket ruling that is going to be applicable to all lots into the future, that it is a substantial change. Because they're asking for a new process for deciding what is substantial and what is insubstantial. And to me, that is a substantial change. And if I don't say the words substantial and insubstantial again for several weeks, that will probably be fine.
Do they start to lose meaning?
Well, my lips are starting to feel a little
dry.
So. I mean, it's annoying, but to make it easier, we have to bring them back for like a formal process. But I just feel like otherwise it's not going to really accomplish what we want it to accomplish, which is to make this easier in the future. People forget.
And so that everybody knows what the rules are.
Yeah, because otherwise,
Right on there, be attached.
you win the lottery, Jamie, and it's all over. Nobody knows what's going on.
Look at the files.
It's like you don't know even, like if you don't know it exists, you don't even know to look for it. So it just seems like the comprehensive permit is there. People will know to look for it. This should be attached to it. I mean, I suppose we could say that it's an insubstantial change, but then go ahead and attach it to the comprehensive permit in the files in the planner's office. But
I mean, and
that seems,
but then it's not on the registry of deeds won't file it because it won't be.
yeah. The other thing too is I feel like if we don't actually amend the comprehensive permit to allow this, we open the potential for there to be disputes among neighbors about whether or not this is even something that is really permissible. Whereas if it's in the comprehensive permit and so that everybody is essentially has equal access to it, and there has actually been a formal process that determined that this delegation of authority is acceptable and appropriate. Yeah, the more that I think about it, the more I think we really do need to go that route for something that is, I mean, it seems really inconsequential. On the other hand, we've, definitely had neighbors come in angry at each other over things that, to my mind, would be pretty minor. So
if they advertise and you have to notify abutters, who are the abutters? The people that live there already, or the people that live around?
I was just pulled out the map to look, and I think it's everyone around it.
I think it's the people within the property and all of the people around it.
yeah.
I mean, it's a,
But the nice thing is, going, like once we do this, this is, like this aspect is taken care of, and so.
and at that point, they're, if they're gonna do this, they can decide whether or not at that point, if it's
Right.
deemed to be, if it's substantial, they may decide, you know what, it's not worth it.
We'll just let the homeowners
keep-
on their own do
We'll just
it.
let the homeowners keep coming back and.
But everybody would be on the same page though.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like you have an advantage over me because there's nothing in writing.
Right, I mean, if they can just, like, if any homeowner can just come and say, hey, is this substantial, is this insubstantial? It's not a huge burden. If they want to get rid of that burden, then I think we do need to have a process. I don't know, although, I'm not the only voice, so if people want to overrule.
No, and I think that's fair, that there are a set of rules, and the rules are what's in the zoning regulation, or in the comprehensive
Well, and
plan.
like you said, they might not want to bother and say, okay, forget that.
Yeah, which is fine.
Problem solved.
Right, problem will be solved one way or t'other.
So this is a substantial change as we move forward.
Yes. And I
We
need
do
to go over
have one
Oh, right, the request for.
request, and I left that in the office. I'll be right back.
Did I steal somebody else's copies of Beacon that still do care?
Well,
Oh, you have pretty ones. Did you printed in color?
yeah. They come, if I don't hit the black, they come out in color.
I just steal from my employer, so that comes out in black and white.
So this is one copy that the ZBA can share. Sorry. It's for the former Lost Sock laundromat on Payson Street. It's an application going before the planning board to build 4 units of residential in one building. And it's an existing site formerly built on, burnt down.
This is across the street,
How many
about where the
apartments were here
comprehensive.
before?
Yeah.
It was 1 on top or 2 on top?
I think on the first floor was the commercial laundromat,
Right.
and then there was 2 floors on top of it, but
And this is gonna be it looks like a townhouse style, 2-story, 2-bedroom,
Okay.
unheated attics.
Where is the street?
Payson Street?
Parsons
No, in relationship, because I've noticed there are some multifamilies that sort of have an odd orientation.
You mean the really long ugly ones?
This is right on the street.
Right across.
Well, so the front doors will be abutting the street.
The front doors will be on the sidewalk.
Oh, good, then that
They
looks
will?
nice.
Really?
I
Okay.
think so.
Because the
So it won't go
last
in-
one was narrow, wasn't it? Well, but this says front and rear elevation.
It doesn't say street.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. That is what you're seeing. That is.
Oh, it is facing the street.
Okay, great.
Good.
Cool. Oh, and parking will be in front.
So it'll be set back.
It's interesting.
So it's like 4 townhouses.
Yeah.
Right, they're calling it a fourplex.
Everything's cooler if you put flex on the end. So,
Flex.
any comments?
neighbors gonna come back?
A lot of them have moved away.
Have they really?
Yeah. The majority of the people that were most opposed to the Payson Street project, like the real
Yeah.
fiery ones,
There's
I think.
another one that's for sale.
Moved away. And they've all sold like that. New buyers want to be there. So,
Yeah. It's always like I'll be somewhere and I'll see somebody and I'll be like, why does that person look familiar? Why does that person look familiar? And I'll be like on the verge of going up to say hi and I'll be like, you hated me. I'll just give you some space. Anyway. I think that's it for tonight.
you want to keep this?
No.
Okay. Give it back to the board.
So let's adjourn. I move that we adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. Goodbye.